Gene?
Yes.
Board members, we all set? Roger that. Okay. Let's go. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. It's the Warren Township High School District 121 regular school board meeting. As we start out every open session with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you could all stand up. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up is a motion for a secretary for tonight. I move to appoint John Anderson as secretary pro temp for this meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz and second by Carlson. Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks much. Next up is an approval for the agenda. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz and second by Anderson. Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. Next up is my favorite section of every board meeting. We have some recognitions.
All right, we've got 2 students tonight. Gonna have to-
We're going to ask you a lot of embarrassing questions, so be rough.
all the way- Tell us what you do, how you got to the ILMEA All-State concert recognition, and just a little brief.
And McHenry. And then across the state, all of the scores are like totaled up in order to figure out like who should go into All-State. And I got into the All-State Honors Jazz Ensemble. So there's 2 levels, honors, and then below that is the All-State Ensemble. So I got into the honors. So by audition, I'm the best jazz baritone saxophone player in the state of Illinois. And at Allstate, we drove down to Peoria with Mr. Westfall, along with Addie and David Whirl and White Pillow, and we had a very nice time. And
That's enough.
we had a steak. Yeah.
Details.
That's enough. Yeah.
Now, okay, and so for everybody who doesn't know, for anybody that doesn't know, the baritone sax is the really big, heavy one.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like as tall as me, basically. It's
Right.
very large, right?
Yeah. Very large. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We are super proud of you. Really appreciate you coming here to be recognized, but more so appreciate your contribution to the school district and representing us. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, then let's see. Let's give Addie a moment here.
Hi, guys. So the same question as him?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Addie. I auditioned the same process, except it was not mandatory for me. Mr. Westfall, oh wow, that's a flattering picture. Mr. Westfall selected me and a couple other students to do the same video audition. I got in, which was really cool because I was the first girl in I don't know how many years to have made it into All-State, which is it's a pretty high honor for me. I had a really great time there. I learned a lot. I took away a lot of new information that I shared with my classmates in choir. And overall, I had a really good time. Our choir director at All-State was fantastic. Brian Winnie is his name, Dr. Brian Winnie, and he works at Western Illinois University, and he was super helpful. It was super informative, and I had a really good time there.
Great job. Great job. Thank you.
Addie, Randy, we are also very proud of you and appreciate your willingness to represent the school. So I gave each of them one of our W pins that we give the students when we bring in here to just acknowledge them. So congratulations. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Good job, yay. Thank you.
Great job, guys. You guys are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the board meeting. If you have other things to do that you'd rather to do, and you got up and left, our feelings would not be hurt. So
Another 2 hours.
that's a big hint, hint, wink, wink. If you want to leave, go for it.
I mean, we're fun to be with and all, but
I mean, you got practice, you got homework, things like that, so. Yeah. Thank you again. Congratulations, guys. Next up is our time for public comment. There was a sign-up sheet there that nobody signed up for, but that does not prevent anyone from addressing the board if they would like to.
Step up, Karen.
3 minutes. Absolutely. No worries.
Earlier, years ago for the referendum.
I think you came at my first meeting too. We found each other outside.
Yes, I sat next to you. I was like, who is this gentleman so dressed up? I came from work. I didn't.
Was he
come
wearing
from-
socks that day?
It was the night that the board hired me.
He
It was the
came
night you
from the
guys hired me.
hall. I think he let me in the door. I don't know. Okay, you guys have a 2-hour meeting ahead of you, so I want to jump in. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Karen Beeman, and I'm here today as the parent of a Warren student and swim athlete. And I have 2 additional kids that'll be coming, so I represent the classes of 2027, 2029, and 2031. I'm also the president of the Blue Devil Swim Club, an organization I've had the privilege to be involved with since its inception almost 25 years ago, which blows my mind when I was a student myself. I just wanted to go on record and express my deep appreciation for the high school, for the pool, and to emphasize its importance to me, my family, the students in our community. So the pool to us is more than just a facility. It's a vital resource that brings people together and fosters a sense of community. For many of our students, it's a place where they've learned to swim, developed life-saving skills, and built lifelong friendships. Moreover, the pool is home to our club swim team, which relies on the facility for its training and competitions. And the team promotes not only physical fitness, but it also teaches valuable life skills such as swimming, discipline, teamwork, and perseverance. And these lessons, of course, extend beyond the pool. And they positively impact the lives of current and future students in many ways. So I'm really excited to share that we're back to our pre-COVID registration numbers, which we've worked really hard to get there. We currently have 137 registered swimmers. Not only do we have strong registration numbers, but we're seeing more kids attending and qualifying for swim meets and regional cuts than we've seen in the past few years. I'm so excited for my incoming freshman, who's part of a group of 10 swimmers that are coming in that are likely ready for the varsity level. So I'm thrilled and so proud. So that said, I also wanted to share that I think we have an opportunity to further utilize the pool. I'd love to see us using it again for swim gym, which I've heard we haven't for the past 2 years. And a potential way to get the kids back in the pool, because I understand we have issues with lifeguards, is to potentially do a program like Libertyville and Mundelein, who actually offer a lifeguarding class as a gym credit. So if we do something like that, we could self-sustain our own lifeguards and also promote the ability for kids to be hired at places outside of school. As you hopefully know, we have a lot of pools in the area with the Gurney Park District, Six Flags Hurricane Harbor, the Grays Lake Park District, Adler Park in Libertyville, and many others. So I'd love to see us get back to doing some of that pre-COVID programming and just promote swimming. I love it. It's changed my life being part of that sport. So ultimately, even though we have the oldest and smallest pool in the district or in our conference, I think the opportunities it affords our students are invaluable. And thank you for supporting it and being open to continuing the conversation about the pool. And thank you for everything that you do. My kids love Warren, and we're so happy to be part of the district. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good job, Karen. Oh, yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm going to throw in here, Karen is I think, has helped me put together that group that the board asked me to put together about a year ago. So we've got a meeting coming up here in a couple weeks, like she referenced. So appreciate that help from her.
Next up, our committee reports.
We don't have anything to add here.
On to the superintendent's report.
A couple things I did want to point out in my superintendent report. Let's see if I could pull this up. Cell phone discussion, I just would put some attention on the cell phone discussion. Cell phones continue to be an area where we're trying to figure out how to acknowledge as part of our life in school, and continue to try to figure out how do we best acknowledge the impact that the cell phone use has in our classrooms. We are going to do what we would call some instructional rounds in April, where all of our administrators are getting in some classrooms just to specifically try to better understand how technology use in cell phones specifically is impacting the classroom experience for students. And I did have a meeting last week with some local legislators. That was part of a larger superintendent legislative roundtable meeting. I got there early. I got the time wrong. They were there early too, so I just had about half an hour to chew cud with them. And I used the time just to talk about cell phones with them to help them understand the impact that cell phones are having in our classrooms, even by teachers who are trying really actively to make sure that students aren't distracted by them. It's still a constant topic and a constant area of constant attention that teachers need to pay every day, all day. I was, before that meeting and conversation, I was optimistic that maybe there would be some state level action that would support us in trying to get a better handle on cell phones in schools. But I don't any longer think that. I know we've talked about cell phones to different committees and heard perspectives from staff around cell phones. I don't see a state level solution coming to us. I think most likely if we see anything at the state level, it's just going to be a general statement that says school boards have the ability to enact cell phone
They will take the heat
policies in
unless
their
they have to.
Yeah,
No way.
I don't think so. So the thing I think that was difficult with the people who are writing the legislation was it was hard for them to understand that we need some help around what happens when students bring their cell phones against a current policy or rule. The policies and rules already happen, but we're struggling with students that don't regard that with the decisions that they're making. It was really hard for them to conceptualize large amounts of students not following a rule or a law or statute. So I don't foresee anything coming from that. Let's see, I don't know if I put it in the update that's attached to the board meeting, but I did recently update the school board and had some questions that we could talk through right now. That we had a handful of catalytic converters that were stolen from our buses over the weekend a couple weeks ago. So we're down some buses as those get replaced. We have fencing around our transportation area, but people just hop the fence. It's expensive. We're working through with the insurance company on figuring out some reparations for that. It seemed to, but Chris can maybe help me with this. It did seem like it wasn't just us. There were a handful of school districts that had this happen to in the recent past. So we're
Plainfield got
guessing.
shut down. Plainfield shut
Yeah.
down their whole grade school district because
Yep.
they took like 30 of them.
Yep. So this was probably some type of coordinated effort because it happened in a very brief period of time. But I think Steve might have had some questions, but if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to talk through that a little bit more. Nope, okay. Otherwise, I don't have anything to add to my written report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that might come up.
Can you talk about the solar panels a little bit? It sounds like we may have identified some kind of maintenance we need to do.
Yes, maybe. So I'll give my perspective and then Chris might add to this. So on an annual basis, we do get a cost savings report that we're supposed to be able to use to compare ourselves to what was projected. And so some of the projections came in lower recently, and you'll see those on here. And so we did have, is it performance services come out, look at our equipment, and help us identify a handful of fixes or upkeep that we could do to try to pull that yield in on a monthly basis to be higher, and also suggested that we do basically sound like an annual maintenance review of the equipment. What should we add to that, Chris?
Basically, it would be like an electrician that is familiar with solar, and they would come out and do the inspection and make sure that all the connections and, everything for the reporting would be in place and working.
Murders.
Living nearby Gages Lake, I always drive on Gages Lake Road, and one thing I notice is snow on the solar panels, and if it's not melting, it just sits there.
That came up years ago.
Yeah. I noticed it like a week or two ago. So I wonder if that could be something to ask them, is if part of the maintenance is just somebody, custodial staff, maintenance staff, just brushing the snow off the panels. Maybe that's already being done and I'm just not aware. But it did appear to me driving by that partial panels were covered in snow, and I don't know enough to know how that impacts the absorption of the sun.
Performance Services did tell us that in the winter months, because of cloud cover and snow, that the output would be lower. We make up for that in the summer months, so it's kind of like an expected event due to nature, but I always thought that because it's attracting the sun, that snow would melt, but I don't think depending on temperature, it may not melt as quickly.
Just
From what I remember, that when that topic came up, when this started off, and Johnny, feel free to correct my memory on this. Like you said, there was a known performance decline in the wintertime, but because of the angle and the panels are black, that would help melt it, and there wasn't a need, they didn't see a need for someone to come along and brush them off, because that could do other damage to them unintentionally when you're brushing them off, because you're hitting the connections, you could be scraping them, that you're just better off letting nature do its job.
It does appear that our savings is still substantial. In some cases, it's not as much as projected, but we'll keep looking at it on an annual basis and try to make some of those adjustments and look at the equipment on an annual basis. What other questions would you have?
Good, the solar panel. Benefit. I'm glad we're paying attention to them.
Questions on the superintendent reports? If not, we'll go on to the consent agenda. I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented, which includes personnel recommendations per Exhibit A, number 61 through 70, as posted, and Exhibit B, athletic activities and volunteer personnel recommendations, numbers B19 and B20, as posted. The payment of bills dated February 18, 2025, in the amount of $7,600,188.81. Regular meeting minutes and executive session minutes of January 21, 2025. The second reading and approval of district board policies, the amended 24-25 school board meeting schedule, and the approval of the reading list for 25-26 school year. Roll call.
Motion by Schultz and second by Pope. Mr. DeMonte?
yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks, everyone. Next up under discussion items, the immigration enforcement update.
Yeah, I just wanted to open this up for discussion. Before I do that, I do want to recognize Mr. Pagan for coming, so thank him for doing that. he was on the personnel agenda that the board just approved.
Congratulations.
Let's see, Dr. Moran, if you could come up to the mic. I'm going to just do a brief description of what we've tried to do around the immigration topic. And then maybe hand the mic over to Sandy because she might want to add something, or I might miss some important things. And I know she brought a group with her in case there are questions about how this topic is impacting our students and families. The reason this is, I suggested we put this on as a discussion item is because we are experiencing a high level of questions in the community from general community members, students, and family members about how we're approaching this. Initially, most of the questions, let me rephrase this differently. In January, we were receiving a lot of questions around this topic because of the change in a federal approach. I will say since then, the questions that are coming to us have broadened, and so while definitely the highest number of questions that we're getting are specific to immigration enforcement impact, we are getting more questions about safety of some of our other groups of students, specifically our LGBTQT students, and making sure and asking how we're keeping them safe. We are getting some questions around curriculum, and if we're going to have to make curriculum changes. We're getting some questions around diversity initiatives and if those will continue. Most of the response that I'm giving for most of those topics is, well, at this point, we're still waiting to see what the Department of Education puts out, and that happens in a couple months. But the immigration topic is timely. It's people are asking about it on a day-to-day basis, and we're not waiting for approaches to be published by any federal agencies right now. So generally what we've done is, as an organization, is we've tried to communicate out our policies and procedures to staff primarily and to families so that they understand that when any law enforcement or any partner agency comes to our door, they have to have some type of supportive document. Oftentimes that's some type of warrant that's signed by a federal judge, unless they're local law enforcement. So our Gurnee Police Department and our County Sheriff's Office, we know them, they're local, they will come in, and usually our partnership with them allows them some quicker access to the adults in the building. But we treat any type of immigration enforcement officials. We haven't had any come to us or contact us, but if they did, we would require them to show some type of federal judge warrant that allows them to access information that we have. Those get processed through the superintendent's office, so you don't have a security guard or a receptionist processing that and trying to make a decision. So we reviewed those processes and procedures with all staff, tried to push those out to families. Did some special discussion around those with our security staff and our bus drivers because they are frontline employees. And then Sandy's been helping just lead some conversations in groups around the topic and what we can be doing to best support our students. One of those groups included like a voluntary small group after school session where we explained what we were doing and also got some feedback from staff. And then we did have an all-staff meeting on Wednesday morning because the questions continue to be so prevalent. I think the most important thing to remember with the immigration enforcement topic, and then I'll hand it over to Sandy, and then any questions that you have, is that this does not just affect, let's see, how do I say this? You can't tell by looking at someone or by talking with them if this is impacting them. So it's impacting many of our families in different ways, some directly, some indirectly, and you don't know unless you hear their stories or they have a story about this, whether or not this is impacting them. Someone could be extremely fluent in English and look and be white Caucasian, and this is impacting them pretty significantly. So most of the message we're trying to give staff is that if a student needs support, we have a whole structure in our student services teams, and they can walk a kid down to meet with and talk to their counselor or social worker. We did some extra training with our student services teams just to make sure that they had access to and understood where to get the information if people come to them for kind of that first line of response and questions. Sandy, Dr. Moran, tell me what I'm missing. What else is going on?
First of all, I just want, on behalf of the BPAC, our Bilingual Parent Advisory Council, we would like to thank you for acknowledging the issue and listening to us and doing something for the community to make sure that we're just not ignoring the topic, that we are just making sure that everyone is well versed and has the information that they need to handle any situation if a student were to ever come up to them and bring up the topic about immigration. We've collaborated, and I'm very thankful for I'm going to say her name, Carla Vargas and Marlene Vargas, which they're not a couple. They're, as you all know, they're both counselors in each district, but they've been tremendously helpful. A lot of their students have been going up to them, they're confiding in them and talking to them and telling them the stories. And then also I'm very grateful for my BPAC committee because they are the voice and they know they're out in the community and have been able to share with me the impact that this situation is having on some of the families. So thank you very much, and we're just grateful that we are able to disseminate information and be able to post any relevant topics or resources that might be helpful for the community. We are in the process right now currently of trying to get someone to come in and speak to our staff about the topic of immigration. So hopefully by our Institute Day for March 3rd, we should have somebody there for 2 of our breakout sessions. We are currently just trying to, I talk to them constantly, and we are able to share out anything new that I might not be aware of. So we're constantly alert and just trying to keep up to date with all the changes. So I think we have a good handle on this right now, but I'm very grateful right now for all that we're all doing as a team. It's a hard topic, and unfortunately, we are seeing a few of our students go back to their country. Just today, as I was getting my hair done, I'm sorry, but my hairstylist mentioned to me that a few of her people that are, relatives that they know are starting to get letters from immigration saying that they have to go back, so that they were allowed to come under the Biden administration, and I don't even know the title of it, but they were able to come and stay here, but now with the new administration, now they have to go back. So the next challenge for us is going to be, what do we do as a school district for students who have to go back in April? And is there a way that maybe we can help them graduate? So that's a new topic that has recently just resonated in my world, that letters are starting to come in where families will have to now go back to their home country, and some of them are seniors, and I know some of the students. So it's going to be a hard thing for us as a district to process, maybe a way that they can hopefully graduate and not leave and go back to the country without a diploma from, our institution. But yes, we're going to continue providing resources as much as we can to our families. I received a few phone calls, and most of them were just fearful that ICE was going to come and take the children from the bus stop. So obviously, we assured them that that's not going to happen. But this institution is a safe haven for all of us, and just making sure that they're aware and they feel comfortable sending their children to school. And at this point, it's very steady. It's been very quiet, and I feel that our community is believing us and hasn't seen anything outrageous that makes them fearful of sending their students to school. Mm-hmm. Do you have any question for us or my committee?
Denny, you mentioned that if people were to show up at the door, that you'd require a federal judge's order. Has that happened? Is it likely to happen? Does it happen in Lake County? Is this?
I think it's very unlikely that it will happen. There was one report of it happening in January in a CPS, Chicago Public School, that was retracted. I think there was some confusion around who actually came to the school. So I'm not aware of a situation where it's actually happened anywhere in the country reported. So I think probably my editorial comment on that would be probably what we're working through continuously is the emotion around the possibility. I know Dr. Moran, even herself, has been on the phone with multiple families who are scared to send their child to school. And so, as you'll notice, Dr. Moran talked about the focus is how do we support students? Our job is to support students. And so if we have a situation where a family's concerned, what we're trying to figure out is how do we make sure that student doesn't fall behind if they're not in school for a few weeks until that family realizes that we're safe here. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's happened anywhere.
And I have networked with other directors from other school districts in DuPage and McHenry County as well, and they're also not experiencing any of that. I think it was all talk and just kind of a little scare tactic. That's how I'm seeing it, but maybe I'm wrong. But no one in my world has experienced any ICE coming to a school district.
They get letters that say they need to leave? That is happening.
That's starting to happen, yes. There were 4 families that I found out about today. And so they're given a certain amount of time to leave. But now, like I said, I know of 2 that are students here for sure, and they're seniors, so.
What happens if they don't? What happens if they don't?
Probably they will come to get, yes.
That's probably immigration enforcement would then put them
Yes.
on a list, and they'll work through their list, and immigration enforcement would have different ways of prioritizing individuals, but they would eventually be put on an enforcement list, I would imagine. The thing that's really important that we try to communicate and we'll probably need to continue to communicate out and for those types of familial situations is that it's really important for families to have an emergency plan. So one of the things Dr. Moran and our wonderful bilingual counselors have been trying to do as they're disseminating information is here's an example of an emergency plan. Make sure that you have such a plan so that if something in your family unexpected or expected but not hoped for happens, that there's a way that the kids continue to get support.
We're really stressing the family emergency plan in case there is an emergency, that we want to make sure that if the parents are deported, that the students know what to do next and who to go to if this were to happen. And yes, Mr. and Mrs. Vargas have been visiting classrooms and sharing information and providing those packets to our students as well.
How, if you have any concept of a number, are we experiencing attendance issues due to the fear of being at a bus stop or walking to school or taking public transport? I've heard the school itself, once you're here, feels like there's a process in place, and the concern is more the worry outside of there being in a public location. I've even heard some chatter recently about what we as the school may consider to be an event open to the public. If it's open to the public, in theory, an ICE agent could attend that. So I've been reading some stuff on that, but are we seeing any, aside from these couple of cases, like attendance patterns, kids not coming?
I can tell a little bit, and then you can talk a little bit. I have been in touch with Mr. Lazaro, so he's the attendance personnel, and that was one of my curiosities as an educator, like what does the attendance look like? And he said that at the beginning, but not anything different than the normal. So he has not experienced that. I do have a few families that once I spoke to them, and there were students that had been absent. They are starting to come, and the few that did not, they went back to their country.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you for all the work you've done to help us.
I know it's a touchy subject.
Yeah, no, it's important that kids feel safe when they're at school and that families know they can trust us to keep their kids safe at school. So thank you for all that you've done about that.
Let me ask them if they have any questions. ¿Tienen preguntas o quieren decir algo? No. Yeah, they're
Does
my
the board
ears.
have any, does the board have any questions for any of the visitors?
Not for the visitors, but I just wanted to, real quick, I was going to thank you, but I had a quick question. You said the staff at the school, did you mention bus drivers were also being provided
Yes.
education?
Yeah,
Okay,
they-
that's what I
We did give the bus drivers kind of a one-pager to review what to do if someone shows up at their bus, any law enforcement or partner agency, and then Mrs. Turf had an all-staff meeting for just the transportation department, gave them that one-pager and reviewed that process with them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and.
Thank you all.
So much, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Next up into action items, approval of the school board meeting schedule. This is pretty much procedural. Any conversation? Any questions?
Election day?
I don't think we have election day this year.
I think it's next November. I just checked. It's election day, but okay. Next
In
year.
2025?
Showed on my calendar election day and I showed on yours. Okay. We'll worry about it later.
Yeah, we can table it for another month.
Thought we were gonna move some stuff around, no? For this year? Oh, yeah. We did that already, okay.
Want to just table this then, Danny? Until next meeting?
Yes, let's table it if there's still, I could have looked at the calendar wrong, so let's table that, then that would be my recommendation. Sorry.
Even though we're tabling, can I ask a question
Mm-hmm.
about, that you've got something in here about a shared services committee?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we have a neighboring school district, Mundelein, that has one superintendent for two school districts. There are multiple school districts in Lake County that are in this situation. I'm not proposing we move to that scenario, but Mundelein does have, because they have multiple districts sharing district office staff, basically, they have a shared services committee that I have been trying to figure out a little bit more, because the board seemed like there was some interest in increasing collaboration with the feeder school districts. The superintendents from the two larger school districts, Woodland and Gurnee 56, and I meet monthly now. And one thing I talked with them last week about was if they'd be interested in pursuing this idea of a shared services committee. I believe the way that this works in Mundelein is big picture. I'll share how I think it works in Mundelein. Is there are a couple representatives from each school board that meet a handful of times during the year to talk at the board level about ways that services or partnerships could benefit the community. We do some of that as staff. Most of our conversations with the feeder school districts are really around coordination and collaboration as opposed to sharing. And if there is a specific or targeted interest in sharing services, that might work better if there's some board involvement, board understanding, and then board direction in the future. So that's something that you could consider, is reaching out to these other school districts, the boards on the school districts, and seeing if there was an interest in 3 or 4 times a year having a small group with just a couple board members from each board meet to talk about possible areas to actually share services, much in the same way that we share transportation services with Gurnee 56, and we do some sharing agreements around food service with 56 as well.
Talia works in a district that does that. Lake Forest has one business office for two districts. Completely. And the one superintendent, I think, too.
Correct.
So they do 2 board meetings. Every week they do a board meeting, basically.
I'm not asking for that.
Let's be clear.
I don't blame you, but.
I would foresee, if you want to do something like this, I would foresee maybe the first year you're just meeting 3 times a year. Trying to understand the lay of the land and maybe come up with a couple priorities for the future. Sorry, Mr. Devante, if you're going to say.
No, I mean, you had mentioned busing and food service as an example, but it could assist us with extremely hard to fill positions when we have the power of 3 districts going in together to complete an appropriate salary potentially for, I mean, some positions are becoming harder and harder to fill, so, yeah.
Yes, that is where both the other two superintendents immediately went, was to occupational therapists and the possibility of looking into some of these really specific positions that our students who receive special educational services need, and sometimes we're relying maybe on outplacement because we aren't able to fill those positions.
My mind's immediately going, maybe because had some representatives here, but just, we've talked about bilingual counselors and bilingual psychologists and, you know, these positions that are hard to find, but if we could make a good case for a good salary and possibly even helping families from K to 12, which could be a pretty big appeal to someone in the profession or us to be able to see families through something larger. So I think it's a great idea to explore.
I'm not mistaken, a bilingual speech pathologist, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that would be like, you know, necessary and very difficult to find. So.
Yeah.
If it just fostered better understanding between the districts, it'd probably be beneficial, but whether they ever shared anything or not, find out why they can't freaking read. But I think it would help. I mean, it would foster some other conversation, which could be beneficial in a lot of areas, not just shared services.
It sounds like we can table the agenda item, and then I'll look some more into Election Day. But then I will continue that conversation with the 2 other superintendents and let them know that there's some interest in this, and maybe we can figure out some logistics to make that happen next year. So thank you.
There's definitely interest in that, so.
You say that, some logistics to make it happen. Could that include, since we're tabling it, this is probably what you're thinking, and I'm not making the connection, but so let's say finding 3 dates that we can all identify as board meeting, like a board meeting night, and specifics can come later. But it could even just be us, we market all districts as a board meeting, but we just divide up into smaller groups and maybe have 1 or 2 and just as a concept. So since we're not approving that calendar anyway.
Yes, I can look into that some more.
Committee of the Holes, or?
I'm just saying, like, let's start.
You know, like
well, let's
several.
start. I mean, even if it's just 1 date in the fall and 1 date
Yeah,
in the spring
no,
that
I
we can
agree.
all agree on a board meeting, we haven't approved it yet, and start small.
Definitely, I can do that.
Which may have been what you were thinking. I'm just slow to the party here. So.
Doubt that.
I haven't thought that far ahead.
I don't know. I don't know.
Anything else on this topic? If not, we're going to move on to an approval for facility use fees. Any question or?
I do, is it okay if I make a comment on this one?
Please do.
So in the past, the past few years, we've been making a direct increase to the hourly rates. I'm taking a little bit different twist on the proposal this year. And instead of proposing an hourly rate, I'm recommending that we move some classes of external organizations from Class 2 to Class 3. So these would be nonprofit, charitable, religious, philanthropic, and other civic groups. What that does is there is an increase to the hourly rate, but what the real meaning here is that when someone moves or a group moves from Class 2 to Class 3, then the incurred costs are passed on to them other than just the rental rate. So in addition to custodial, if we have to bring in extra security or maintenance or have different setup fees, right now with Class 1 and Class 2, we eat the cost of most of that. So that would, in essence, feel like an increase for most of the rentals that are not Class 1 and 2 because they would move up to Class 3. It's just a different way procedurally to address those organizations
So that's basically a break even is what you're saying at that point. We're not eating any costs. Which
If we
were
move them
before.
up, if we
Yeah,
move them up,
that's a
correct.
break even cost for them, for us.
I think we have it, I think we call it like cost plus. There's a little bit of padding in there just to acknowledge some wear and tear, but
Okay.
correct, we're covering our costs.
Okay.
Have a lot of civic groups?
We don't have a lot. We have a few that are pretty big that come in and take significant resources
Okay.
to support. But no, not a lot. Not a lot. That's all. Yeah.
If not, I move to approve the modified facility use fee schedule as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Motion by Schultz and second by Pope. Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes. Motion carries.
Next up, we're looking to increase the number of positions for next year.
Yes, I, just as a recap from last month, I'm proposing that we add a bilingual teacher secretary at Almond. We have one of these right now, but she services both campuses, and the workload on that is significant enough that we think we have enough interpretation translation services to provide at both schools. Both campuses. We have an administrative assistant for Dr. Moran and her department there. Those are different positions, service different people. So the bilingual teacher secretary services primarily families and staff at the campus. The administrative assistant would service specifically the multilingual department and support BPAC as well. And then the third item on there that's new is a parent and family liaison. This position is like an ombudsman, I would say, an ombudsman between families and the services that we provide. I will note that we just last week received a copy of the diversity audit, reviewed that in the diversity committee today, and the board will be getting a copy of that soon. They do have, one of their recommendations is to consider position as an ombudsman between families and the services. I expect the services provided by that person will primarily be at O'Plain to start out. Maybe it would stay like that forever, but I think that's where we would start out. And that person could help, especially with new families as they come into ninth grade, connecting families to the service that we provide, with the hopes that once they're connected better and families understand our system better, then it'll be easier for them to transition into the older grades. Happy to answer any questions about those. I do expect that the bilingual teacher secretary at Almond would start next school year. The parent and family liaison position could start next school year. That's my minimum request, but if there's, after you vote on this or discuss it, if there's interest in that position starting sooner, to go into the spring and try to catch families as they're leaving 8th grade, that's a possibility. And if there's any support around, go ahead and hiring or posting the administrative assistant for the multilingual department earlier. The workload doesn't significantly just start in July. There is an increased workload now, and so that's something that we could consider as well.
I'd like to see you do it as soon as you can.
Yeah.
I think the parent-family liaison especially, it would be helpful to get them on board and see the transition starting as soon as possible so that they are getting their feet wet, getting a little bit under their belt and understanding the systems to be able to get started right away. Yeah. Not opposed to the others either. That one, as freshmen are coming in, that transition would be important.
I don't know how you would determine this, but let's just take the parent and family liaison. It's so critical for that person to be good at procuring relationships and ideally, we would want that person to be here for a while because you don't want that position in particular to be a revolving door. So my only caveat to trying to fill that now is an understanding it's got to be filled with the right person, of which maybe someone's doing something similar in another district, has knocked it out of the park, and has an interest in coming here or working at a high school level, or maybe they don't feel respected at their current district and will respect the heck out of this position or whatever. I want to be sure that position just is filled as well as it could be. Right person over speed.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how you determine that, but we want that person to stick around for a while.
No rush over quality.
No.
You don't need to wait to start. You don't need to wait to start.
Correct.
Start now.
Thank you. I don't have any other comments on that unless you have other questions.
Else from the board? If not, I move to approve the additional positions to the fiscal year 26 annual staffing plan as presented. Roll call.
Motion by Schultz and second by Pope. Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks. Next up, we're looking for a softball trip.
I don't have anything to add to this, but if you have questions, I can try to answer them.
Any questions? If not, I move to approve the softball team trip proposal to Kentucky and Ohio from March 20th to 23rd, 2025.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Anderson. Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks. Next up, we have some revised drawings for the, from DLA.
Yeah, Chris can come up here and help me with this, but you do have some revised drawings. We made some modifications to the training room after we decided to use the current training room at Old Plain, completely renovate that into a boys' locker room to make sure that we had, even if they're smaller than the full locker rooms, a boys' and a girls' locker room that specifically could be used for swim that's in proximity to the pool. And so you have some revised drawings of the locker room as well as a budget and a drawing for the boys' locker room that's would be in the current training room area. There's a couple options on the boys' locker room. We're not asking you to choose. They're just examples of how, depending on where we end up finding the pipes, how that could end up looking. I think they were in this week.
They were in on
starting
Monday.
to look for that.
This is what they're doing to the old locker room to make a swim locker room.
They're doing to the current training room.
Yeah.
Yep,
To make it
Couldn't figure out what the
so
differences
that's in the
were.
old, that's in the current building.
it's in the current
That's
building.
gonna be part of it.
Otherwise, kids in their swim trunks would be going from the locker room down the hall.
A to B.
To,
Yeah.
Yes, understood. I'm in favor of that, so. Yeah.
What other questions you got?
Go.
No other questions?
Quick.
We hashed this through last time?
Yeah.
Early enough?
Beat it to death. That's-
Yeah. Okay, if there's no other questions, I move to approve the Old Plain campus locker rooms and athletic training room drawings by DLA Architects Limited as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Pope. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks. Next up, Ms. Green is going to teach us about interfund transfers.
Oh, fun.
I think we get
Let's
schooled
go
on
back
this
to
every
locker
time.
Oh, you're saying she puts the fun in fund?
We're just kidding, Chris, really, come on.
Now what?
Accounting is our favorite subject.
Especially these transfers. I mean, come on.
So,
Be better than that? What about your goes indes? 12 goes into 24?
so this transfer is the $4 million that the board agreed to. We did $4 million last year. We're asking the board to approve the $4 million transfer for this year, which probably more than 50% of it is going towards the roof. And we have a couple of projects coming up that will also, some of these funds will be used for.
Questions? If not, I move to approve, excuse me, wrong one. I move to approve the resolution authorizing permanent interfund transfer for capital projects purposes in the amount of $4 million.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Anderson. Mr. Demonte.
Yes.
Mrs. Squires. Yes. Mrs. Pope.
Yes.
Mr. Carlson.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Chris. Last up, we have a disciplinary action. Any further conversation on this?
So we're going to do what we discussed?
Yes. That being said, I move to approve the disciplinary recommendation for student 25-10 through January 1st, 2027. If I can add that in there.
Second. Yeah, Beth Pope, second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Pope. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks so much. Any other topics?
Throw one thing out. So that the community knows and the board knows, the company that runs our board docs, Diligent, was purchased by another company maybe a year ago, and they're starting to migrate us to the new system. So maybe for the next board meeting, but sometime in the next couple months, we will migrate over. The look of board docs will be a little bit different for the community if they're looking for board agendas and information, and it'll look slightly different for you, and we'll probably have to do a little bit of onboarding for everybody.
Chinese.
I think it's in English.
Be new and improved. If there's nothing else, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Motion by Schultz, second by Carlson. Mr. Pope, Mrs. Pope?
Wow.
I never missed that.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Thank you, Bobby.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
6 yes, motion carries.
Thanks much, everyone.
Thank you.
Be safe, be healthy, have a great night.
Be warm.
You.